All right, guys, I think I actually like the way we formatted things yesterday. At this time of year, I don't really feel like going through every single game on the card and going through every single player because there's so much weird. It makes our lives a whole hell of a lot easier if we can just really focus on the names that I want to focus on. And today, we don't have quite as many as yesterday's big weekend review, but we've got like 20 names or so that I want to talk about on today's show. And so we're going to dive straight into them by, same as yesterday, just looking at the tweet I put out, which is a perfectly good reason, by the way, to find me on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, and here is your Monday review condensed edition. These are the ads, and there will also be the near ads and the watch list guys. So basically like 3 tiers of players to look at. What it doesn't cover, I guess, is the obvious drops to make. And so maybe I'll make some tweaks on that going forward. But I think this is kind of the way I want to format these review shows, at least right now, where we can really kind of angle in on the stuff that I think is the most important. And some of this stuff is relatively straightforward. Like, for instance, the first name on the list is Deuce McBride, who had 10 points, 2 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a couple of 3-pointers yesterday. It's not an overwhelmingly great ball game, but I wanted to highlight him again because since Jalen Brunson went down, Deuce has been excellent. And I don't think anybody was going to drop him after one game here that was just a little bit quieter than the others. And frankly, you know, when you look at what he's done over the last couple of weeks, it hasn't been an overwhelming number. But he's top 70 over the last week on about 13, 3, and 4 with good defensive stats, nice threes, bad field goal percent, which I don't think is going anywhere. But he's a guy that definitely needs to be on rosters while Jalen Brunson is on the shelf. And I think we all kind of know that and kind of agree on it. Tyus Jones was a name that I think was on the near board last time around, but he's getting elevated now because since our last recap show, Bradley Beal got ruled out for a week. So Beal now is down and out yet again. What an annoying player to try to roster in fantasy this year. Absolutely, positively, maybe the most annoying player to roster in fantasy sports this season. He really could be, but he's out for a week, which means the best you're going to get out of Beal after that is like 2.5 weeks of basketball. But you're going to hold on Beal, and, you know, it could be longer than that. Phoenix might be eliminated by that time comes around, which is why I like Tyus Jones. And I know he didn't start yesterday. I don't care. Tyus Jones is good enough, whether he's starting or coming off the bench, that if he plays 27, 28 minutes or more, he is a solid fantasy asset. So make sure that he's been added in most leagues. Tyus Jones is one of the new ones on the board. And again, it'll be, I think, reminiscent of what Tyus was doing more towards the beginning of the year when nobody was hurt at that point, but he was just sort of the point guard playing 28 minutes a game or whatever it was, and he was inside the top 100. The difference now is that one of the stars is out. So a little bit extra usage, a few more points, a few more assists, a few more touches of all shapes and sizes. And I think it's going to be hard for them to keep his minutes lower than like 29 or something like that. I know they've got other options and blah, 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 blah. I just think Tyus Jones belongs on rosters. We should at least see how this goes with the Joneses, man. The Joneses are coming in strong right now because Tre Jones is the next name on the list. And I don't know how many times I'm going to have to put him on this show before everybody picks his stinking butt up. Tre Jones has been incredible lately. He's finally up to 26% rostered in Yahoo leagues. I just have no idea why it's taking so long for us to get there with him or for the universe to get there. The second that he showed signs of life, he should have been on rosters because he's a high field goal percent point guard, which those guys are hard to find. He's going to get you steals, assists. He's going to get you some points. I don't know if that's going to stick forever. The scoring has been particularly good lately. 18, 19, 18 points again. Like, I don't know if he's going to shoot 75% long term. He's not going to hit you many 3-pointers. That's not a really big deal. He's not much of a rebounder. But, you know, if you want like 6 or 7 assists and 1 to 1.5 steals and a good field goal percent, Tre Jones to me is a very obvious choice. And he's top 50 over the last 2 weeks because he's shooting, again, a bit over his head. But who cares? Who cares? He could keep it going for another week, 2 weeks. I don't know how long a hot streak's going to last. We're this close to the end of the season. Next name on the board is Kevin Huerter, is one that we've talked about actually on this show, I think more than most out in the fantasy space, but I also admit I don't really pay close attention to what anybody else is doing. And it's not because I don't care. It's because I don't have 10 seconds around my, and like, they should really tell you, and I think they probably do tell you this, but maybe it just goes over my head. When you have kids, every year they have more activities until they turn like 16 and they can start driving themselves to their own activities. You just lose time more and more and more until you have nothing left. And then all of a sudden, the world is going to dump time back on me again in like a dozen years from now. And I'm not going to know what to do with myself. I'm going to have a logjam of video games a mile high that I decided I wanted to beat in the year 2035 when one kid is driving the other one to their activities together. Anyway, Kevin Huerter, sidetracked as per usual here. 17, 9, and 2 with a steal, block, and 5 3-pointers yesterday. And the thing is, and I get it, he's not going to hit 6 out of 11 shots every single ball game. The important thing here with Huerter is that he's played 30 minutes or more in 5 consecutive ball games. It does sound like Josh Giddey is coming back soon. That's something we need to be a little bit concerned with because Giddey's going to drop right back into the starting 5. And then how does that impact Tre Jones? How does that impact Kevin Huerter? It sort of still kind of remains to be seen a little bit. If Huerter can continue to get 11, 12, 13, 14 shots a game, I think he'll belong on rosters. So for me, it's going to very much come down to field goal attempts. If he drops back down into that 8 to 10 range, he won't belong on rosters. And he might go on a hot stretch or a cold stretch, and you might get a window in there where he's a top 100 asset even when the shot volume is not as high. But if you want to look at the full 4-ish weeks remaining in the season, if you want to feel safe about starting Kevin Huerter, you need him to be getting 11 or more shots. That just has to be the usage rate for him for the long-term fantasy outlook. Short-term, anything can happen. Anybody in the NBA can get hot for 2.5, 3.5 weeks. He could be taking 9 shots a game, but if he shoots 50-some-odd% on them, he'll be a fantasy asset. We just can't predict that. What I can do, the best thing I can do here is try to predict how, not even predict, but just tell you this is how usage correlates to his fantasy rank historically. And for Huerter, you're going to need about 11 shots for him to be worth rostering in most formats. If you need a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists, some okay steals, and a bunch of 3-pointers, he's a play in that instance kind of regardless. But if you need that, if you need to see, oh, this is going to be a top 100 guy, that's the number you're looking for. Guys, we got 8 minutes in, and I forgot to tell you, March Madness is starting like now, practically. And BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. They have the largest selection of odds on everything college basketball, a $200,000 bracket contest. They have odds, stats, and more on every game, every play, and every win. So if you've got your eye on a Cinderella story this year, get down to BetOnline and let them be your ultimate game day companion. BetOnline. The game starts here. And again, I cannot stress enough how important they've been to Old Man Squad fantasy basketball. Without BetOnline, this stuff would probably all be paywalled right now. So they are the reason that I can continue to just churn out stuff at this insane clip. Massive, massive difference maker from just like a personal financial standpoint. Please go check them out. It would mean the world to me if you did so. Luke Kennard is the next name on the list as we pivot back to our regularly scheduled programming. And this one very much comes down to the Ja Morant situation, who I'll admit, and we talked about it on the show yesterday, when he got the second half of the back-to-back off over the weekend, that was on Saturday, it seemed like it was just the usual, it's a back-to-back. Ja's going to get one of these games off. They felt like they could win it without him anyway, and they did. But then 2 days later, the game in Sacramento came rolling around, and Ja was out now with a hamstring injury instead of just shoulder soreness. This is a new one, and one that you've got to figure the Grizzlies are going to be pretty damn careful with because they got no shot in the playoffs without Ja Morant, and hamstrings are tricky. The problem here, of course, is that the Grizzlies fell from a tie for the 2 seed to the 5 spot with their loss last night. The West is extraordinarily bunched up in the 2 through 5. It's very bunched up in 6 through 8. And then, the Kings, the Mavs, the Suns, and the Blazers, I guess, are technically all still gunning for those last 2 play-in spots. So the biggest bunching right now is 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's going to make a massive difference. The Grizzlies, as the 5 seed, are going on the road to play the Lakers in the first round. Uh-oh. The Grizzlies, as the 2 seed, have a home court against whoever comes out of the play-in tournament with the higher seed. So they want wins. All those teams in the top, 2 through 5 really want to win their ball games. But, if you think about the Grizzlies, you think about the Lakers, these 2 teams that are missing now key pieces that they also cannot afford to rush back. LeBron is 40. Ja Morant is always banged up. I know that he's not as old as LeBron, but there's kind of a similar thing going on there. Soft tissue stuff. I think they're going to be cautious. I do think Scottie Pippen Jr. is probably back by the next ball game because he's been historically pretty damn durable in his short NBA career, but still pretty durable in it. And Luke Kennard is not. Luke is your safer guy because he's going to just roll starting point guard style. He'll get you assists. He'll get you threes. Scottie Pippen Jr. is a little bit more of the lightning in a bottle one. You want to try to catch him on the right game for the assists, the steals, the blocks, and, you hope you catch him on a better percentage day. I think between those 2 guys, I'd rather have Kennard, and then Pippen being out, he didn't make this board, at least right now. Jonas Valanciunas is back on the list. In fact, he probably didn't get dropped because the time that Domantas Sabonis was back from his soft tissue injury was only, 2.5 ball games? Well, JV's back, ladies and gentlemen. He only played 16 minutes yesterday. Actually had a decent ball game despite only playing 16 minutes. But they go up against the Cavs in their next one. If Sabonis isn't playing in that one, Valanciunas is playing a bunch of minutes because Cleveland's gigantic. The Cavaliers, as great as they are offensively, they're so big that other teams almost have no choice but to play big also. And that's what makes the Cavs so dangerous, is they can run you off the court and they can beat you with their size. So I would assume Valanciunas is going to get pretty good minutes. Frankly, in the next couple of ball games, they play some big dudes. Chicago, they got Vooch. Milwaukee, they got Brook Lopez. If Sabonis is out for whatever the time length here is, go check to see if somebody already dropped JV, which honestly they should have. But a lot of leagues are in the playoffs right now where, 8 to 10 of the 12 teams are probably locked or just not paying attention. So JV might just be languishing at the end of their rosters and didn't get dropped. So just check, see if he's back out there. He's a great injury fill-in play for however long you can do it. Russell Westbrook has been on our board quite a bit here lately. He's been great while Aaron Gordon's been out. And then in yesterday's game, Jokic and Jamal Murray were both out. And so you knew that was going to be a vintage, oh God, close your eyes, please let this be okay, Russell Westbrook kind of game. And it was a pretty big damn triple-double. 12 points, 12 boards, 16 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and 2 3-pointers. But you take the good with the bad. 7 turnovers and 5 out of 18 shooting from the field. The only saving grace yesterday was that he did not attempt a free throw. Thank God. But right now, the counting stats are so big for Russ that it doesn't matter that the other stuff is a train wreck. He's top 50 over the last week, despite 4.5 turnovers and 44% shooting on pretty high volume from the field, because he's at 2.5 threes, 17.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, and half a block. So Russ is a go in all systems right now. All systems go on Russell Westbrook. As the Nuggets get healthy, he probably won't be anymore, but they're not, so have at it. I don't know who I wanted to win in that ball game yesterday. If as a pragmatic Lakers fan, you always want to see the Nuggets lose because they're right there, but the Warriors are kind of hard charging, and this is going to make it very hard for Golden State to catch up with that upper crust there. But they're winning games. The Wolves have been red hot, and then I don't know what the hell happened with them yesterday. Anyway, Alex Sarr is the next name on the list. I don't know if this is a thing, and I said this on yesterday's show. I have no idea if this better run for Sarr is going to stick, but his field goal percent, 58, 43, 44 over the last 3 ball games. You don't have those like terrifying 25% shooting games mixed in there. And so you're getting a lot of the good right now. 19 points, 34 points, 20 points for Sarr. The rebounds haven't been all that impressive for him, but 11 assists over those 3 games, 7 blocks over those 3 games. He's made all 10 of his foul shots over those 3 games, which admittedly, I didn't think he was going to be a low 60s free throw guy this year, so it makes sense that it's coming up a little bit now. But he's running hot. I think you got to at least give him a look while he's running hot, with the caveat that I'm totally fine if you move on the second that looks like Sarr is cooling off. And then this is sort of like one of my sneaky favorite plays on the board is Jaxson Hayes, who's been kind of the Lakers' secret weapon. And I don't know that unless you're watching the Lakers really closely, I don't think that this is a thing you're going to see, and it's definitely not a thing that the mass media is going to talk about because he's still Jaxson Hayes, and he's still not like a great basketball player. But for what the Lakers are trying to do in a Luka Doncic and when he gets back, LeBron James-centric offense, Jaxson Hayes is pivotal. He is the Lakers' only rim protector. Tre Jones is not a rim protector because he's like 6'4" and 300 pounds of pure muscle side to side. Christian Koloko is not a rim protector because he's taller, but he's about 180 pounds, if that, soaking wet. These guys can't do, like if you could somehow combine Tre Jones and Christian Koloko, you might get a rim protector. But Koloko's he's 7 feet listed at 220. If he's 7 feet, 220, I'm about 180 pounds at 5'8". He's a string bean, and he's getting pushed around, and he's not doing very much. And, then you got Jemison, who, what is Tre Jemison listed as? This is going to be our fun enjoyment moment of the day. Tre Jemison, who is an absolute brick wall of muscle. He's 6'10", 260. That dude is not 6'10". That dude is 260. Tre Jones has 4 blocks in the last month. I think Koloko has less than that. And it's not about just blocks. It's about being able to finish around the rim. Like the fact that Jaxson Hayes is a leaper is the difference maker. He can finish. He can catch lobs. Jaxson Hayes is listed at 7 feet, 225. The day he's 5 pounds more than Christian Koloko is, by the way, I have this bridge. It's lovely, and I'm hoping to offload it from my portfolio right now. Rosters and height and weights make no sense at all. But Jaxson Hayes, as bad as he is as an overall basketball player, in what the Lakers are doing, he is vital. I think they've won the last 10 or 11 games that he's played in. And he went down, and immediately they lost 4 in a row. You can say, yeah, LeBron. Yeah, I mean, I know LeBron being out for those games also important, but like, everybody's talking about how Dorian Finney-Smith, and I'm guilty of this as well, as sort of the Lakers like plus minus super god. You could put Jaxson Hayes in there too these days. For that reason, and this might just be until LeBron and Rui Hachimura come back, because at that point the Lakers could run small. They wouldn't have rim protecting, but they'd have so much offensive firepower that it might not matter. In the interim, while they have to lock down on some people, Hayes is getting 26, 27, 28, 29 minutes a ball game. And for him, with Luka, Reeves, and at some point LeBron throwing him lobs, he's been a top 80 guy over the last couple of weeks in about 28 minutes a game. Because he's shooting close to 80% from the field, which, by the way, I'd love to say that's just wholly unsustainable, but he's pretty much only dunking. He's got that DeAndre Jordan offensive fantasy game going right now. 14 points, 8 boards, a steal, a block, 2 assists. Not great free throw numbers, but he's actually not a back-breaking free throw guy, and he'll probably trend up a little bit there. I think Jaxson Hayes belongs on rosters. I know the Lakers don't play today. Then they've got another back-to-back. It actually is the start of 3 games in 4 nights. I think he'd be an excellent ad on the head-to-head side tomorrow. And I think he's an excellent ad in the roto side if you need any big man stats whatsoever. Did I intend to spend that much time today on Jaxson Hayes? I did not. But did we now do it? We did. So the hell with everybody. Quick commercial break, and then we'll get to the rest of the names on the list because these are going to go a little faster. Here are my 5 very close names. And as I said yesterday, the very close players, you can go ahead and add them if you want to, because I think they make sense in a lot of formats. Jared Butler is the first one. He, to me, was more of an assists specialist. He did get 2 steals yesterday, just like a generally better all-around game from Butler in yesterday's contest for Philly. He's top 100 over the last week now, while hitting 93% of his foul shots. He's 41% from the field. That's the trouble. But he is averaging 1.3 steals and half a block over that stretch. And that's the big reason why you're like, okay, maybe, but he's not a big steals and blocks guy in general. So I am a little worried that if these full starters minutes, it's going to sort of settle closer to 1.91 steal per game instead of 1.3. Eventually, he's going to miss another free throw. He's made 12 in a row from the free throw line. He had a game where he hit a bunch of 3-pointers. His scoring was much better. Like, I do think that he levels off probably outside the top 100. But again, rank doesn't mean a ton right now, because if you need assists, he's an excellent guy to put in your lineup. And he's getting assists and he's playing enough minutes where he's not going to break you in points per se. He's not going to break you in rebounds, because he's just going to be out there long enough to get 2.5 to 3.5 boards a game. And he's going to be out there long enough to get 0.8, 0.9 steals a game, which isn't good, but it's good enough if you're attacking the categories that he's best at. Jabari Smith Jr. is the next name on the board, although it sounds like Amen Thompson is actually not that far away from making his comeback. So I'm not huge into Jabari, but he did have a gigantic ball game yesterday. And so we're, like over the last week, he's right around the edge of the top 100 at 16-7. I just feel like there's not enough usage typically for him. And Freddie VanVleet got ejected for an idiotic flagrant 2. That frustration foul. He was mad at an official, so he just clubbed somebody. So I think I'm probably more on the no side with Jabari Smith. But again, if you need a light combination of rebounds and points with some threes, okay. Kyle Filipowski is on the very close list because he's basically a constant coin flip decision based on whether or not Walker Kessler's in or not. And Kessler now has played in 2 consecutive ball games. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't need rest anymore. He was resting games that weren't even on back-to-backs, and then he played in the back-to-back. Now, Utah's got Washington coming up tomorrow, which feels like a game they really are going to want to lose. Jazz are 15-54. Wizards are 15-52. They've got kind of like a 2-game gap if you're looking at it from that perspective, but if they play any of their varsity guys, they're probably going to win that game against the Wizards. So I would assume that those guys are out tomorrow, and then that means that you're going to get a Filipowski game, and then you're probably going to get a lot of Kessler after that because they play Boston, Cleveland, whatever. He can actually get some good, let's play you against some better teams kind of experience without really a threat of accidentally winning a ball game. So Filipowski makes sense, I think, right now, maybe just for the 1 game. Colin Castleton is pretty close to me. I like what he's doing in Toronto. I just think he has an interesting fantasy game. But, he's not a guy that you have to, race out to go get. No one's trying to beat you to Colin Castleton right now. And frankly, I'd like to see more shot blocking from Castleton. I think he's trying to stay on the court, which I appreciate. But I don't just need rebounds. You need something else as well. And he's not shooting the ball all that well. And then Moses Moody, who was certainly quieter in yesterday's ball game after having a few good ones in a row. Moody, 9 points, 2 steals, and a block. He's basically a threes and steals stream, which, again, useful in a lot of formats and on a lot of teams. But I don't think you could count on him getting big numbers. Probably in line for a better game today if Steph Curry sits, as they sort of hinted that he might get a day off. And then we move to the watch list guys. These are the guys that I'm not moving on yet, but Ricky Council's been kind of interesting lately, but not that great in the last one. Justin Edwards was better in the last one, but wasn't super interesting before that. So these are some of these Philly guys that are bouncing around sort of at the periphery for me. Matisse Buzelis in Chicago. Obviously, if Josh Giddey comes back, that's just going to clutter things a little bit more. So I'm not making a move on him, but he did look a little better in their last ball game. And so it's something, again, to just kind of keep in the back of your mind in case it sticks. Orlando Robinson also in Toronto. We're just talking about Castleton. Those guys, somewhat interchangeable. Castleton, I think, has the slightly more translatable fantasy game because if he could hit a shot, you could get field goal percent, rebounds, and blocks. With Robinson, it's really more rebounds, and then you hope that he can score enough to not be a negative there. Gary Payton II is on an interesting little roll for the Warriors right now. And again, if Steph rests, and that's maybe you get sort of a one-game thing, but he's on a serious steals and field goal percent heater. And so that's kind of interesting, and a guy that I'm kind of looking at tonight. And then Matisse Thybulle, who basically made his, I think it was season debut 2 games back, and then came out yesterday and had, 6 defensive stats? Didn't take him long. 22 minutes, he had 6 defensive stats. And that's always been the thing with Thybulle. If he can get up to about 24 minutes, he can be close to 3 defensive stats a game. He is nuts at that end of the floor. So if you are streaming steals and blocks only, because there's absolutely no guarantee that Thybulle will get you anything besides steals and blocks, he is a very interesting hyper-specialized play where if you get lucky, he'll hit you a 3-pointer and get you 2 boards and 2 assists. And those are the watch list guys. And, maybe tomorrow we go back to just recapping the entire card because it's a relatively short Thursday. But I do kind of still like the way this feels to be able to hone in on the key names that I thought jumped out yesterday and needed a little bit more discussion. A name that I've been asked about a bunch on the drop side is Khalil Ware. I think you can probably drop him. He played 19 minutes off the bench for Miami yesterday. That's simply not enough time. That's despite Andrew Wiggins being out. So there was a lot of playing time to go around, especially at bigger spots on the court, and they did not go to Ware. And he was a minus 27, a team worst in his 19 minutes on the floor. I'm not saying that it was his fault. He was part of lineups that sucked, but he certainly wasn't part of the solution. Also, other piece of news from yesterday that I probably should have highlighted at the beginning of the show, Trey Murphy tore his labrum and is out for the year. We got no indicator of who was actually going to take his minutes yesterday. Jose Alvarado got 28 minutes. Typically, his playing time has corresponded more to CJ McCollum's absence, but he played more here. Jordan Hawkins also got 28 minutes. But again, this game was a blowout. New Orleans lost by 46. Zion played 28 minutes, but nobody else in the starting core. Oh, sorry. McCollum played 30 also. But there were tons of minutes to go around, and it's very hard to know what that means for this team for the next ball game. So I'm not going to make any move on the Trey Murphy replacement yet. The Pels play every other day this week. So they go tomorrow, they go Friday, they go Sunday. I think when we find out who's starting, we'll have a better idea. My best guess is it's going to be Hawkins, but I really don't know. It could be Matkovic if they decide to go really big. That would be kind of surprising. It could be Bruce Brown, who got ejected, and maybe he would have been the one to pick up a bunch of time if he didn't get punted out of this ball game. So I wouldn't race out and make an ad until we know a little bit more about who the beneficiary is there on the Trey Murphy injury. And the only reason that didn't come up is because every other injury had an obvious replacement, like Valanciunas is the replacement for Sabonis, and who the hell else went down yesterday? I forget who we already talked about that got hurt, and we had an injury replacement pop up in the last minute. It doesn't matter. A lot of the guys we talked about on today's show are injury replacement. But again, this time of year, an injury replacement guy might just be for the rest of the season. Hey, guys, please do remember to hit that subscribe button here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. We got so much stuff dropping. We had a baseball draft show drop early this morning. That's on third baseman as you're targeting in your baseball draft. I know a lot of folks are drafting here in the next 1 to 2 weeks on the baseball side. Season starts for most teams, I think, about 10 days from now. Dodgers and Cubs started in the middle of the night. Not their middle of the night, my middle of the night. So we got baseball stuff coming. We got DFS shows. One of those dropped last night from old Brenton Eckersley. Baseball shows from my good buddy Joe Orico. A lot of good reasons to hit that subscribe button. Please, 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 please hit that 5-star review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. And on YouTube here at the like button. Comments remain open. I'm still going to try to answer every single question this season. So far, so good on that front. And we're coming down the chute. I'm Dan Besbris. Still, even after all these years, at Dan Besbris on Twitter, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. Back in 2 hours with our daily streamer episode. I hope I'll see you for that. For now, adios.